start our second half, I want to introduce Flavio Fraschetti, who is a developer at Rise Up, and Flavio is going to talk with us about scanning products with Storybook. So Storybook, I guess most of you heard about it. It's I think when a company becomes a little bit larger, you have to have some sort of a design system, some sort of a way to coordinate, and I think Storybook is the de facto leader in this field. So I'll have Flavio. I'll introduce him a little bit. He's very passionate about technology and arts. He has been developing 2 years React Native, fully dedicated to React Native, and currently works as a mobile developer for RiseUp. RiseUp is a French tech company focused on education. So welcome, Flavio.
Hello, guys.
Nice to have you here. Going? How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm good, thank you. What about you?
Great. That's great to hear. So you're going to talk with us a little bit about Storybook, right?
Yes, that's the main plan. Basically, I'm going to talk about how to improve communication between teams and how Storybook is very useful for us to achieve that.
Yeah, so that's super important. I don't want to take any time from your talk, but afterwards we will have a little bit of chat because that's a
okay, sure.
That's really, it's very interesting to me. And I urge you, the audience, the people who watch this stream, if you have any questions during the talk, please write them in the chat, and we will discuss them afterwards. And Flavio will also be afterwards for the
Yes,
Q&A.
I will be available to answer any questions you guys have.
Yeah, so I'm very excited. Let's start.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So I'm a mobile developer currently based in Lisbon and using React Native for the last few years. I'm also passionate about blockchains like Polkadot and its related technologies like Substrat. And that's a picture of me when I find a bug and have to solve it. Anyway, let's move on. Today, we're going to talk about component workflow, challenges when scaling, Storybook, some add-ons, and final conclusions. And of course, we're going to be open for questions. So I work at RiseUp. It's a French tech company focused on education. We have the offices both in Paris and Lisbon, where we're currently based. RiseUp is a blended learning platform for all stakeholders, like professional trainers, administrators, and learners. By blending learning, I mean that we provide both digital and in-class training and everything in between. So what we develop is a tool to facilitate the organization of the training, measure its impact, and highlight its importance. Our focus is to provide methods to each learning to optimize the impact of training on their skills. So how does it work? Basically, on the RiseUp platform, we can create, deploy, and pilot your training activities, building our own learning organizations for all your team members. In summary, we are a complete solution to transform your training service. With a small team and a small app, it's easy to keep track of what's going on and all the implementation details. But when you're handling many clients and ton of features, well, daily life can be a mess. For example, product managers can experiment with a release or demo versions of the application. But some component states are very hard to reproduce, This can lead to many details not being well explored during the development process. I believe as a company, we need a way to ensure transparency and update the communication between all the teams. And for us developers, the lack of good component documentation usually leads us to go through the code, investigate what a component does, and reproduce all the states until we figure out which we should use. This can be time consuming, right? Very often, we realize that a certain component is not that reusable. So we need to do some refactoring. And of course, we need to make sure that we won't affect the other parts of the app. Quite boring, right? Would be nice to improve that. And of course, solving those issues would also make it easier to onboard new developers so they can quickly understand what we do, how we work, and contribute faster to the platform. What do we need? Well, it would be super useful to have a kind of a playground or a component explorer where we can try all the different states of a component. We want our own platform, a platform that brings UX designers, product managers, and developers together. Because ideally, we want to decentralize knowledge, and we also want to keep other members of the company updated about the features being developed. Also, we want to make sure it's being developed with consistency. Summarizing, we need to share knowledge because, Storybook can help us with that, and that's just one of the features. Storybook originally was created for one single use case: develop and design UI components outside your app in an isolated environment. That's what the documentation says. But it's important to acknowledge that's only one of the features. In practice, Storybook is also a component explorer, style guide generator, documentation site, playground, sandbox, and UI library. Because of its ability to be customized to fit your team's needs, possibilities are enormous. In our case, we want it as a component explorer UI, organized and efficient, to be deployed as a standalone app, so everyone can download and experiment with our component library. We also want to use it as a code documentation and its ability to generate snapshots with Jest, so we keep track of any future changes. I will showcase how simple it is to install it and some examples and possibilities. Here we can see like how it looks when we first install it. It comes with a few demo stories, which are a very friendly way to learn how to implement your own. Notice that instead of an app, we see this navigator with the components and its different stories. We can also see that it's possible to control the simulator with the browser. That's the Storybook server, which, although not mandatory, can be very useful to control more than one simulator at once. The Storybook server with React Bear configuration will only control the simulator. As you can see, it's not displaying the components on the browser. For that to happen, we must use React Native Web. It can be a bit tricky to use it with a bare React Native installation, but if you're using Expo, I believe it's more straightforward. I'm not an Expo user. It's been a while I don't use Expo, so I'm not updated about what's going on there, sorry. In our case, we prefer to deploy a standalone app on the App Center, so everyone in the company can download our UX library and experiment with it on the device. This is the Airbnb Storybook, the web version. It's a very nice example, as we can see how it can be customizable. Here at the left, we have the component list and its variation. And in the middle, we can see the component itself, where we can try and experiment with it. Later, I will talk about the add-ons and how useful they are. To install Storybook is very simple, and you can easily do it by following the documentation, so it's pointless to explain here. But if you're struggling, please text me on your favorite social media, and I'll be glad to help you. The interesting part I want to highlight here is the flexibility. There are many ways to implement Storybook. For now, we decide to go for this approach. We basically have a setup file in which you can configure Storybook mode for either true or false. So in the app.js file, we conditionally run either Storybook or Rise Up app. But another very interesting approach would have your Storybook running a completely different application, which uses the main application as a dependency. and manage it with a monorepo. For those unfamiliar, monorepo is a word for a Git repo that contains multiple projects. It allows you to have multiple projects and share common dependencies instead of installing the dependencies for each of them. This simplifies code sharing between projects and allows you to import code from one package to another. So the Storybook app could simply import the component from the main app, and that way generate your UI library. In RiseUp, we are really thinking about that approach, not only for Storybook, but also to manage your other projects in the future. The most basic way of creating stories is like this template. First, you create a file with a stories.js extension. We must import the storybook, and after that, we define that we want to create the stories with the label button, for example. So we add a story with the label default view, which is what will be displayed in your storybook UI. And that's where we can create multiple stories as much as we want. I can show you like our example. This is the RiseUp app. This is the RiseUp setup. So as I told you, we are running conditionally. So if I do this, I have your storybook and I can navigate it. I can check like the multiple states. I can experiment with the props, with some add-ons, which I'm gonna talk like in a little bit. I can see like how do they look. And that's why here at the app.js, I basically pass the setup. This is a work in progress. We are going to do like more complex things because that's going to be kind of, it's going to work like a white label app with your own splash screen and everything. And yeah, to be deployed on App Center, as I told you. So here like we have the Storybook UI I just imported. I imported the setup and I conditionally run here. As I show you like from the documentation. Here on index.js, I have some options. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. Because for each story that you do, you need to load it and you need to do it manually. But this extension is very handy because like you can simply like install the extension, do like this setup here, and you can see like here, and it will import all your stories for you. So you don't need to do it manually. It's very, very handy. I totally recommend it. As I told you, we also have the snapshots, like this example here. There's another add-on for this, and I will talk about it like in a few minutes. And for each component, I automatically generate a snapshot. So every time like I modify something on this component, I have this track here, and we can debug it with it. Yeah. Basically, for this, yes. And now like we can talk about some add-ons. Add-ons are where Storybook really shows its powers. We have plenty of options for React Web, but unfortunately, not all of them are available for React Native yet. The good news for me and for you too is that our favorite add-ons are available and they are absolutely amazing. Here we have a list of frameworks and their compatibility. And of course, you can always contribute as most of the add-ons are provided by the community. When you see like this sign here, it's because the add-on can be like rendered on the device, like the knobs that I'm gonna show you, and yeah, and so other examples. Here's an example like knobs add-on. This is a way to make your props dynamic, so you can change titles, color, or whatever your props do. The cool thing is that they can be controlled by both mobile or web platforms. So you can provide a very interactive and flexible way for your team to experiment with the component and not just like a static version. And here is an example of how it works on mobile. Instead of just documenting your components, they are completely interactive on a standalone app available for all your contributors. Other nice add-ons are available for React Native, and they are very helpful. You can completely automate like your snapshot with the story shot add-on. It's amazing. Like you simply install it and it will generate a snapshot for your components. For those unfamiliar, snapshots, that's like a very useful tool whenever you want to make sure your UI does not change unexpectedly. Typical snapshot test case renders a UI component, takes a snapshot, and then compares it to a reference snapshot file storage alongside the test. We also have actions, which allows you to mock functions and log on press calls. We have notes, just like show like in my favorite one. Notes like use like to document your code with some markdown and background, allow you to change the background of Storybook to compare the look of your component against different backgrounds. Again, like just few add-ons, just like that can render with the device UI that you can see on the phone. But there are way more useful add-ons to improve your daily life. Please make sure that table of compatibility I just show you. Let me show how does it look in the real Storybook. It's nice. Here is my Storybook. I think it's going to be cool. Like, let's see. For this one, I can. Yeah, this is the knobs. How do they look on the device? I can change a title. Let's say like yay. I will disable and I want to change the color. Let's say maybe this one's cool. I don't know. Maybe this. Yeah, that sounds cool. Hey, okay, cool. The notes one is this one. For me, it's very useful because like, you know, like instead of trying to figure out how a component works, you can just simple copy and paste that and put on your screen or whatever feature you are doing that. That should work if you document it properly. I like the actions like, sorry, I disabled. So here, I can do this. And you have like all the logs in the mock functions. Like you can do like many things with that. This is just like an example. So whatever. Oh yeah. So I think like I want to show up like I have this bug. I'm gonna fix it this week. So I have the storybook here. And I have another bug. That's new. Okay. I have new things here. And yes, you can see, yeah, I like the knobs on to control on web. It's really cool. You can also change it here. Here, actually. That's nice. Sorry. And then I can do this. Okay. I like it's kind of cool because, like, as I told you about the story shots, it's very useful. Like, again, sorry for talking about that again, but yeah, it does like by default like this folder here, but you have an option because like if you keep like as a default, it will like save like all your snapshots into a single file. It's not the thing I really like it. I like to I like to have like things like on their particular folder. Like I really like okay, I have my card component, I have the snapshot, and I have the stories. For me, that's more, I don't know, it works better for me. It's up to you. You can change that by using this file. You create like the storyshots.test.js, and you simply pass this option here. And this will change like the way story shots will organize your snapshot. So I think that's it. Just let me back here. Yeah, thank you. Hope you enjoy like Storybook and that this short introduction makes you consider implementing it on your project. I'm pretty sure like the benefits will be huge. Like if you do so, please share your experience with us on the Storybook Discord channel. On that channel, you can also easily receive support, be closer to the community, and get the most out of this amazing tool. I truly believe that Storybook is useful not only for the development process, but also for product managers, sales teams, clients, and actually everyone who wants to try out a component library. Thanks so much for joining this talk. If you have any questions, please contact me on any social media. Here you have the contacts and the Discord channel I just mentioned. Enjoy Geeko and see you for the questions. Yeah.
Wow.
Hello.
Hi again.
Hello.
What a talk. Wow, super interesting. And
Thank you.
I think, yeah, and I think also super relevant for everyone who is thinking about expanding their component library for more than one or two components. I have a question. You mentioned Storybook as a way to connect departments or connect areas in the organization, R&D, product design. So how did it influence once you implemented it?
For me, like that would be like it's kind of a work in progress nowadays. Like it's something that we are still implemented, but I truly believe that will be very useful for break like barriers between the teams. Like because you know, like sometimes people are really not allowed like about like what we're actually developing and what's going on between the teams, because you kind of create like these bubbles, you know, like, and people are kind of working on their own environment, like, and they're super like yeah, as a bubble. And then like I don't know, I truly believe that by sharing like on a more like interactive way, like people experiment with the components and everything, it's being more how can I say, it's kind of easily to figure out what's going on, and when like they're gonna like show that to clients or anyone, that's gonna be like easier to understand. Like they don't need to just rely on some emails or like or some demo versions on everything. They have like the real version in their own hands, and they can truly experiment with it. That's for me is the most important things.
Yeah, I think it's super important as your code base becomes more complex, and as your I think the design language should stay consistent, but your
Exactly.
code base become complex. Yeah. Cool. So we had some exciting comments in the chat, and I think a lot of people asked whether this code is public. Is it in a repo? It could be. They said it could be very useful. So are you thinking about?
Oh, I can do that. Like that's thank you. Like that's would be nice. I'm working on a starter project, like a React Native starter project. So I could like include the storybook on it and public and gonna publish on my GitHub. So it's gonna be public. So just follow on my GitHub and it'll be there like next week or something.
Yeah, and for the people here that are waiting for this to be published for the starter project, what do they need to know? What do I need to know before getting started with the storybook? Like if you could give like a few pointers.
I think like for me, like a storybook is very straightforward, like really. And when I just started, it was really cool because, you know, like I'm super enthusiastic and write tests is this kind of thing, like, and then like, yeah, but then like that's kind of painful, you know, like at the end of the road. So like for me, it's quite a cool, like how storybook like provide that like for you, like for free, you know, like just you don't need to do anything. You just like if you want like to have some snapshots, you just like install like a story shots, and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like for me, like if you know like the basic JavaScript and like React, you are good to go. Like there's no many secret. Like, but anyway, like I had some questions at the beginning, and the community is really cool. So if you're gonna join us at Discord channel, it's gonna be very nice. We're gonna be there to help you.
Nice. So what would you say are the limitations when you deploy a React Native Bear app as a web app?
Oh, because like as we are using like the React Native Bear, is not using Expo or anything, is way more, is not that easy like to render the storybook as a web app. So like I tried, to be honest, but like I was a bit struggling. Like at the very end, like it was not that like that thing that I want to achieve, you know, like because for us, it would be more useful to deploy like the app as a standalone app, not as a web version. But yeah, you can do it, but if you are really like handling like native components, like and you are not using Expo or something like that, like you can have like some issues. So like yeah, that's why like I just gave up basically. Like it was not that useful if you're using React Native. But if you're using like a storybook React, like the web version, that's straightforward, of course.
So you mentioned at the beginning, you mentioned monorepo. Are you working in monorepo? And if so, do you have Storybook as a separate package in the monorepo?
Not right now, like, but that's the next step. I really want to do it, like, because we also want to create like a desktop app, and you want to create like some other versions, you know, like, and because of that, a monorepo will be very useful to manage like your Node modules and all these things. For now, I'm not actually using it, but this is temporary, because like right now, like I just like conditionally rendering, just like I show it, like, and that's kind of, you basically ignore like the main app, and instead of that, you render like this storybook. That's because like storybook is just like another component. So you decide like how you want to render.
How do you deploy it as a standalone app? So do you need like more extensions or?
No, we don't need any extension. I thought that was necessary, but just because the storybook is just like another component, you can simply like import your components into Storybook, and then you deploy like this app, because it will be like another app, basically.
So actually, so it's really nice to start with Storybook, right? And you write the stories and everything, but who's in charge on maintaining it? So if you have an organization, you need people to maintain the stories. Or
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing. Like it's just like when you create like let's say like your development process start to create like snapshots or like or other kind of tests. I don't know, like, but like with storybooks, pretty much the same thing. Nowadays, like your development process like include like a storybook. So like you create the component, then you create like the stories to make sure like everything will be documented.
Okay, great. So Flavio will be back with us in the Q&A session after the block. And if you have any more questions, feel free to write them in the chat. And actually, I see one question that maybe we'll have time for another one.
Okay, cool. Do it.
Yeah. So how are you handling versioning of component library within Storybook?
Excuse me, can you say again? Your voice just cut it.
Oh, sorry. I'll also write it here. How are you handling versioning of the component library within Storybook?
Oh, so basically, it's basically like we're just like using like yeah, you're just like Gitting, and that's it. There's not any other approach. Like there's not something different. Like it's pretty much the same thing.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So we'll continue to talk about Storybook later.
Okay, cool.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So it was a pleasure.